I'm not quite sure what to do. To be continued. To be continued. To be continued. So we gotta go back here? Oh, Mr. Osawa. That's literally his name. Of course that's Maria's dad. I didn't put that together until just now. Okay, that's Maria's dad. They have the same name. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. The first time playing this game is very overwhelming. There's a lot going on. I don't know what else to do with this guy. We didn't make a choice. He just like... I don't know what to do with this guy. Osawa brought up a folder marked UA virus on his screen. Within the folder were large images of the virus itself. We saw this. He talks about how he loves viruses. He thinks they're pretty or whatever. I don't know what to do. Everyone's at a to be continued. Another email arrived in his inbox. The sender, A. The subject line, 1 year ago, South Africa, again. Osawa read the message. Do not look away. These are your crimes. This time there were 4 images attached. Osawa proceeded to open each of them in turn. The first shocked Osawa so much, he felt like he'd been punched in the head. One of the UA patients from the earlier images was being injected with something. No, Osawa muttered to himself. It can't be. What can't it be? The second image showed one of the infected, hunched over in pain, vomiting up blood. The symptoms had already manifested, but Osawa thought he could see that some degree of life had come back into the patient's eyes. He rushed to open the third image. It showed a morgue piled high with corpses. The rictus of anguish on the dead faces made them look no longer human. Various fluids seeped from their eyes and nostrils. The lymph nodes were grotesquely swollen. I hate when that happens. When you're sick and it's like, ugh. You can feel them getting swollen and you know, like, oh, I'm sick. I'm getting sick. Same virus patient, same. There were hospital beds stained with massive amounts of blood and gastric fluids. Next came the fourth and final image. What are we looking at? More corpses. They had badges affixed to their chests with various labels. 6 hours passed, 12 hours passed, 18 hours passed. It looked as if someone had been attempting live trials with the antiviral agent. Osawa didn't consider the antiviral agent ready for release, but that was because his team hadn't conducted clinical trials on humans yet. And there was a good reason why such trials hadn't been conducted. There was no way to test the efficacy on the drug without an infected patient. To run proper clinical tests, someone would first need to be infected with the virus. No matter how effective animal testing had been, if the drug proved ineffective on humans, that person would have a guaranteed death sentence. It was unthinkable to run trials that involved such a deadly risk. And yet, as he looked over the images again and again, Osawa became certain. Without his knowledge, someone, presumably someone from Okoshi Pharmaceutical, had conducted human testing with the antiviral agent. Time markers on the corpses in the fourth image were surely there to mark the time elapsed since the onset of symptoms. A thorough trial would test the drug's effectiveness in those time frames. Osawa slammed his fist on the desk, enraged. This was nothing short of vile human experimentation in the guise of clinical testing. The people responsible could not be allowed to get away with this. There was only one person Osawa could trust to keep this under wraps, his boss, Makino. He reached for the phone to call Makino, but he stopped short as soon as he picked up the receiver. He knew he was in no state of mind to have a calm, reasoned conversation right now. Turning to the CD player, He put on Aya Kamiki's latest album. Let's vibe out a little bit. Just a little bit. Leaning back in his chair, he surrendered himself to her soothing tones. Bit by bit, he could feel himself returning to a calmer emotional state. There had been a time when Osawa hadn't listened to music at all. In fact, he'd had no interest in the arts in general. Music, painting, cinema. It was only due to a simple coincidence he had found Aya Kamiki. His daughter had asked for a CD as a birthday present, so he'd swung by the store to pick one up. Since Kamiki's new album had just come out, there was a display for it in the front of the shop. Something about the bright, colorful album packaging had drawn him in. Not the 20-year-old girl on the front of the CD? That didn't have any effect. After a time, Osawa could feel himself growing calmer. He took a nice deep breath. You know what? Let's try to get rid of our nerves completely. He closed his eyes. He tried to banish his nerves completely. Inclining his head toward the music, he could feel the melody pervade his body. He could scarcely believe there had been a time when he hadn't cared about music. Surely something had such a strong effect on the body and mind alike also conveyed a deeper meaning. Osawa let the positive energy flow through him, buoying his spirits. At last, when his mood had sufficiently calmed under the music's influence, Osawa reached for the handset. Oh, Mr. Osawa, did you have to make a phone call? The study door had opened and a stolid-faced man had appeared in the doorway. It was Yoshio Kajiwara, one of the detectives from the Shibuya precinct. He struck Osawa as a bit too soft-spoken and meek for a detective, as his treatment of the kidnapping case gave an impression of flighty detachment that made him seem rather undependable. Ah, no, it's nothing important. Osawa drew his hand back from the phone. Have there been any developments, detective? Kajiwara shook his head apologetically. I'm sorry to bother you, but when you're finished in here, would you be so kind as to come to the living room? All right, Osawa said quietly. I'll only be a little bit longer. Kajiwara nodded and departed. He's just like working through the pain. He took a nice deep breath, then he dialed up Makino. Has there been any progress? Makino asked as he picked up. His voice was somber. No, Osawa said. Nothing much yet. A tiny sigh came from the other end of the line. I see. Then what can I do for you? Sir, I'll just get right to the point. Have you conducted clinical trials using the antiviral drug? Makino didn't respond right away. What makes you think that? He asked at last. Osawa described the emails he'd received. When he'd finished, Makino let out his breath in surprise. Not over the phone, he said. We'll discuss this in person. I'll head over to your place when I'm done here. As soon as possible, sir. As soon as I can manage, Makino said. You're not the only person who's busy. My daughter has been kidnapped. With that, Makino hung up. There was no doubt about it then. There had been human testing. Osawa went to let Tanaka know he'd been meeting with Makino. Oh. Kajiwara stood in the hallway. He looks so small. He looks little. Are those doors just really... That door's really tall. Maybe the door is very tall. He looked like he'd been waiting there the whole time for Osawa to come out of the study. Are you hungry? He asked. Here, I've got something that's good for when you're tired. Kajiwara slipped a hand into his suit pocket. A banana! He pulled out a banana. I'm fine, thanks, Osawa said. Kajiwara seemed to lack a detective's sense of situational awareness. Just being around him got on Osawa's nerves. Well, sir, I need you to come with me, the detective said, if you don't mind. He took Osawa by the arm. You reject my banana? As Kajiwara hurried him toward the living room, Osawa could hear other detectives talking on the other side of the door. He's working at a time like this? Seriously? Sheesh, I do not get rich people and their priorities. Yeah, I feel bad for his daughter. Her dad's a real piece of work. Nice. They were bad-mouthing him in his own home. Oh, I am really sorry about all that, Kajiwara said, pausing in embarrassment. Osawa pushed past him and opened the door. Yeah, I'm working. You want to say it to my face? Oh my god, what are they doing? A number of police detectives had holed up in the living room and then sat in a line and sat in straight lines. They went suddenly silent as Osawa entered. So tell me, he said sarcastically, would you rather I stay here weeping as I watch this disaster unfold? The detectives winced and grimaced. Forgive me for not being a perfect father, he added, his hostility building. Kajiwara stepped out forward to intervene before things got out of hand. Now, let's not be touchy. I am not being touchy, Osawa snapped. But he knew full well that he was. These guys had the time to sit around backbiting him, but not to go out and bring Maria to safety? Already close to half a day had gone by without any new developments. The ransom demand had come in at the previous night at 8 o'clock. Maria had been abducted roughly an hour before. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. by Hachiko in Shibuya. Have the sister Hitomi bring 50 million yen. If not, the girl's life is forfeit. The kidnapper called only once, so the police weren't able to run a trace. I'll do it, Hitomi said. Anything for my sister. Okay, bye, Disco. I'm gonna solve it. I can feel it in my bones. I can feel it in my bones. She didn't hesitate in the slightest at the suggestion that she make the ransom handoff. Osawa was staunchly opposed to the idea, but the police were of the opinion that it was better to acquiesce to the kidnapper's demands. Ai's reaction, on the other hand, baffled nearly everyone. We don't have 50 million yen just lying around. Are the police going to be putting that together for us? Kajiwara stepped in to reassure her. If it comes down to it, the police will be able to help raise the money. Okay, go ahead then, do it. We need you to pay it back afterwards, though, of course. Well, then what's the point of that? Her voice spiked up to a piercing shriek. Calm down, Osawa told her. You're making a scene. I turned away in a huff. It's all right, detective. I'll talk to the bank first thing tomorrow morning and figure something out. With that, I stormed out of the room. Kajiwara bowed his head several times in apology. As soon as Hitomi has made contact, we'll apprehend the suspect and take things from there. What? Hold on. Won't that put Maria in danger? If we let the kidnapper get away with the money, we have no proof that he'll even return the hostage safely afterwards. There was a certain logic there, Osawa had to concede. I see, he said. So you're saying that catching this guy will be easier for you if he keeps my daughter hostage? No, that's not what I was implying at all. Kajiwara wiped the sweat off his brow and bowed profusely. At least, I promise we'll get your daughter back safe and sound, Mr. Osawa. Obviously, there was nothing to be gained from further challenging the detectives. All right then. I'll let the police do their job. Osawa bowed even lower than Kajiwara had. But nothing is happening. Nothing is happening. How long are you just gonna loaf around? I shrieked as she stormed out into the room. Hurry up and arrest this guy! She was becoming increasingly hysterical. An hour had passed since the suspect had taken the money, and yet the police had made no effort to apprehend him. The police apparently had a rule against discussing an operation before it was fully resolved, and so the Osawas had been left in the dark. But they had overheard the task force talking over the wireless. It appeared that they were deliberately letting the suspect roam free. Hey, I snapped again. If he gets away with our money, you are going to reimburse us, right? Osawa scowled. She made it sound like the money was more important than Maria's life. The detectives exchanged uneasy glances. You know what? We're not getting into a fight. Let's just say nothing right now. Osawa said nothing. By now, he was accustomed to Ai's coldness toward the two girls. The twins were Osawa's daughters from his first wife. Oh, well, that makes sense. Who'd passed away 15 years ago. She doesn't care about them kids. I had no blood ties to Maria or Hitomi herself. Well, are the police going to reimburse us or not? She glared pointedly at Kajiwara. Well, right now we're focused on making sure Maria is safe? I stormed up to him, shouting right in his face. Stop dodging the question! Answer me! Yes, of course, Kajiwara squeaked. Maybe would you like something to eat to help calm you down? He held out a banana. I smacked it out of his hand. Oh dear, what a waste. Kajiwara scrambled to retrieve the fruit from the floor. Osawa went over to Tanaka and whispered into his ear, I'm going to meet with Mr. Makino. Tanaka nodded silently. Turning, Osawa saw Kajiwara looking in their direction. They made eye contact, but Osawa quickly looked away and strode out of the living room. He strode. Kajiwara followed after him. Excuse me, Mr. Osawa? Yes, what is it? The detective fussed sheepishly with his hair and forced a smile. Sir, we'd appreciate if you could remain in the living room as much as possible. Osawa was in no mood to stand on propriety. Look, I've got a ton of work to do, he said. Are you here to tell me to play the role of the grieving father, too? No, not at all. Personally, I happen to think you're an admirable father, Mr. Osawa. Admirable. Did the word have a ring of sarcasm? He looked so small standing in this hallway. He had no way to tell if Kajiwara was being forthright with him or not. You're no ordinary fellow, Mr. Osawa. You're a genius. A genius? Me? Osawa made a skeptical noise. Am I mistaken, sir? You've made very important strides in the field of virus research. Or so I've been told. Osawa wasn't sure how to respond. He had never considered himself a genius. He was just someone who was more interested in viruses than he was in other people. Everyone who's a genius is also a little bit odd, after all, Kajiwara went on. Probably he'd intended that as a compliment, but still. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with weirdos, so long as they leave us ordinary folks alone, you know? Is this guy trying to praise me or insult me? Osawa let out a heavy sigh. Genius, weirdo, what did it even matter? So long as he could be left to his work, he didn't care one whit how he looked in other people's eyes. Kajiwara wiped the sweat off his forehead with a handkerchief. By the way, what are you working on right now? He asked. I'm afraid you wouldn't understand even if I explained it to you, Osawa replied. Right. Precisely. Even if I gave it my full attention, it would still be beyond me. He peered with sudden intensity at Osawa's face. I'd appreciate if you didn't hide things from me, sir, he said. Osawa gaped, at a loss for words. Oh, I am so sorry. Goodness, that made it sound like I'm accusing you of hiding something, didn't it? The detective bowed his head repeatedly. I hope you'll forgive me. He held out the banana. That won't be necessary? How about this then? Ooh, this time he pulled out a bar of chocolate from his pocket that he already had taken a bite out of. Delish. No, thank you. Does this guy just carry an endless food supply wherever he went? Oh my, Kajiwara muttered. You geniuses really are tough to sort out. He inclined his head, mumbling to himself for a moment. What can I get for you then, sir? What I'd really like is some time by myself. In a daze of exasperation, Osawa felt his way into his study. Locking the door, he finally let out the breath he'd been holding. Then his eyes alighted to the bookshelf against the wall. It's the girls! He pulled out a photo album and began to flip through it. There were pictures of his daughter's grade school enrollment ceremony. Their mother had already passed away from illness, so Osawa had taken the girls himself. He remembered that, after the ceremony, Hitomi had come down with a fever. Hitomi had been rather sickly as a girl, falling bedridden at the drop of a hat. Maria, by contrast, had been lively and energetic, quite the handful. So I guess she's the one that's like laughing, and Hitomi's the one that looks like she's not laughing. Osawa had found it remarkable their personalities could be so different despite them being twins. He flipped further into the album. There was a picture of the three of them at their grade school graduation. Maria was looking away from the camera. Osawa felt like someone had stabbed a dagger in his heart. His daughters or virology? Which truly concerned him more? Which did he truly love? The age-old question. It was ridiculous to try to compare the two. He'd known the answer before he even asked himself. Even so, human emotions were complicated, and sometimes made people act inconsistently. One of the consequences of that was this photo album. This was the last photo he had of Maria. He searched and searched through the rest of the album, but she was nowhere else to be found. But she's in college. Oh. Oh no! Are we all to be continued? Do we have a tutorial for what happens when we're all to be continued? We passed the hour. It's 12 to 1 o'clock now. We passed the hour with flying colors. I only killed like 2 people on my first try. All right, so now, oh gosh. I kind of want to get into the, you know what? I kind of want to get into the, see if she gets all the cat outfit, but I also want to get into the story. I want to see if he gets his story. Minorikawa stood on the sidewalk, weighing his options. Chiaki's phone had thrown him for a loop. Phone call. He'd expected her to be anxious about doing interviews, but wow, she was a real basket case. I mean, you could do them. Still, that didn't change the fact he had a schedule of his own to keep. The surveillance camera story had to be his top priority. Chiaki would just have to find some way to fumble through things on her end. He headed down Dogenzaka, scanning his surroundings as he went. There were cameras set up on streetlights all over the place. There were so many, it was hard to believe he'd never noticed them before. One over there, another over here. Electronic eyes peering down on passerby from high above, where they were tougher to spot. Just how were the people who came into Shibuya reacting to the situation? Hey, you there! Minorikawa called out to a man riding by on a bicycle. Hey, you, stop! The man brought his bike to a sudden stop. Was that the trash guy? I think that's a guy with the trash. He's suspicious. What's the matter? He asked. Hi, the name's Minoru Kawa. I'm a freelance writer. Okay. I'm just doing interviews for a magazine, and I'd like to talk to you. A magazine? Which one? 4-Star General Gossip. Minorikawa did his best to sound proud. Oh, well, I'm actually in a bit of a hurry here. Minorikawa soldiered on. See that? He pointed at one of the nearby surveillance cameras. What? The man asked. That blimp? Oh yeah, there's a blimp up there. Also, I was looking at the camera. A massive blimp was indeed drifting slowly overhead. No, that camera! The camera watched them both in uncaring silence. Oh, that. What about it? What do you mean, what about it? Those cameras have been installed all throughout Shibuya. They're taking in anything and everything. A shocked pallor came to the man's face. Oh, really? He muttered uneasily to himself. I guess I should be careful next time I go picking stuff up. Hey, what are you talking about? Minorikawa asked. That is such a mouthful. Oh, nothing. Just stuff. Way to dodge the question entirely. Anyhow, I think there's some good things about the cameras, too, the man said hurriedly. Oh? Such as? Well, I mean, they must have helped catch some crooks, right? Yeah, I think you're right about that. Oh, I am? The man looked shocked to have his own statement confirmed. Are you hiding something from me? Huh? No, nothing in particular. The man shook his head vehemently. Nothing at all, really. Well, whatever, Minorikawa said. In any case, even if the cameras are helping in arresting criminals, there are some places where people just don't want to be watched. What? For instance, how would you like it if someone set up a security camera inside your home? What do you mean? I mean, a burglar might try to get into your home. If you had a security camera, you could be alerted right away. Isn't that kind of an extreme argument? Nope! You're the one making the extreme argument here. What? The man stared, bewildered. You're saying it's okay for folks to film people around town as much as they might like, but not to take a look inside people's houses. Yes, I guess I am, the man mumbled. Minorikawa snorted. You don't think too deeply about things, do you? The man huffed in indignation. I don't see the problem, he said. I mean, it's a normal enough opinion to want to bring down crime but also protect privacy. Well, yeah, so if they're just gonna set up cameras around town, I'm okay with that. Minorikawa grinned inwardly. You're being naive. Way too naive. Naive about what? By now, the man was getting worked up. Once you start letting people watch you some of the time, you'll eventually let them do it more and more. That's how the world works. A simple change in camera angle is all it'll take to steal the last traces of your privacy away. That's kind of funny coming from you. Doesn't 4-star general gossip get all its scuttlebutt by invading the privacy of others? Since when are you people concerned with personal privacy? Meaning what exactly? You know what I mean. Have you no shame? I've got nothing to be ashamed about, Minorikawa exclaimed. If some celebrity scandal breaks, I write it up in the form of a top-class, socially conscious expose. Minorikawa seal of quality. The man rolled his eyes. Please, as if anyone's ever heard of that. Your everyday freelance reporter would say something about how security firms have no right to use cameras to disrupt personal privacy. But not me. Oh no. I'm the only guy who'd write a first-class piece on the subject. And you want to know why? The man's only response was a doubtful look. Because privacy only exists for me to utterly demolish it. Minorikawa finished up with a prideful grin. That's nothing but journalistic arrogance, the man railed. Oh yeah? Yeah, I'd rather have surveillance cameras any day if the alternative is some weird gossip piece. This time Minorikawa didn't have a handy retort. An awkward silence descended over the pair. Right, I see. Minorikawa muttered to himself as he busily scribbled in his notepad. The man was visibly taken aback. Thank you for your cooperation, Minorikawa said at last. You gave me some good stuff. He held up a hand to forestall an angry retort. I realize I probably got you a bit riled up. You'll have to forgive me. Huh? The man peered up at Minorikawa in disbelief. This is just my interview style. Sorry, I know it's a little unorthodox. Buddy, you're a weirdo, you know that? The man said. Yeah, I hear that a lot. Minorikawa laughed. So can I go now? Sure, I'll quote you as passerby A in my article. Sure, whatever, man. He quickly sped off on his bicycle. Minorikawa now had some material for his surveillance camera piece. He wanted to organize what he'd managed to put together so far. He decided to head toward his next interview location, keeping an eye out for a cafe where he'd stop to work on his copy. He used the map included in the project proposal to guide him. It was hard to read the words and make out the details, but it looked like Nokane Building, where the Burning Hammer demo was being held, was just down Center Guy. There was no indication of which floor the event would be held on, however. That made him a little anxious, but he'd probably be able to find someone to point him in the right direction once he got to the building. He spotted a cafe up ahead. Coffee, please, he shouted as he strode inside. He slumped down in an open chair. Hopefully he'd be able to hole up in here until 1 o'clock, working on his article. If he couldn't have it done by then, finishing the whole issue by the end of the day would be a tall order. He pulled a cigarette from his overcoat as he waited for his computer to boot up. Can you smoke inside? Having a smoke was Minorikawa's little trigger for going into writing mode. He stuck a cigarette in his mouth and lit it up. With the first heavy draw of smoke, he felt his mind focus. That's the addiction talking. The rough idea for his article came to his head nearly fully formed. All he needed to do was get it written down. Finally, his laptop finished booting up. Took you long enough, pal, he muttered to the computer. His hands leapt on the keyboard like a predator pouncing on its prey. In a matter of moments, he hit his stride. His fingers clicked away. One by one, lines of text filled up the screen. A waitress stepped up beside him. Excuse me, sir. But Minorikawa was in writing mode. He didn't even hear her. Sir? Sir, I beg your pardon. Again, Minorikawa was deaf to the waitress's attempts to get his attention. Sir, excuse me! The waitress smacked the table. Quiet! Minorikawa snapped. He slammed the table right back. Don't interrupt me when I'm working. Not if you know what's good for you. The waitress didn't so much as flinch. She leaned in aggressively, getting right in his face. Sir, I hate to bother you, but I have to ask you, please refrain from smoking. Minorikawa blinked. Huh? This is a non-smoking establishment, sir. No smoking? Minorikawa asked. The cigarette bobbed in his mouth as he spoke. The waitress pointed sharply at the sign on the wall. The words no smoking were spelled out clear as day, also in English, very helpful. We ask that patrons please not smoke so other customers can fully enjoy the aroma of their coffee. The waitress drew herself up in an arrogant triumph. A woman sitting on the table next made a face when she tried to fan the smoke away with her hands. Get away. Customers all around the shop were glaring at him. You guys don't know the first thing about the aroma of coffee. The scent of coffee only truly comes to life amidst the choking stench of tobacco. The waitress's only response was to jab her finger again. But this time, she didn't point the sign, she pointed to the door. Sir, if you're going to smoke, please take it outside. But he was writing. Sometime later, sitting inside the Cafe Lautrec, this is where Kano's girlfriend and possible father-in-law are sitting right now. Minorikawa lit up his third cigarette. At last, a safe refuge. It had taken quite some time to find a place that allowed smoking after he got kicked out of the first cafe. Now he was in a rush to make up for lost time, or you could just not smoke. Other option. That's okay. His fingers flew over the keyboard at lightning speed. The more he wrote, the harder he focused. At this rate, he'd have the story wrapped up in no time. Today, you hear me? A voice intruded suddenly on his awareness. One of the other customers was shouting. You're breaking up with that fellow today. Oh, it's Kano's girlfriend's dad. Minorikawa's fingers drifted to a halt. He looked around to see where the voice had come from. An older man, red in the face, was shouting at the young woman who sat across from him. Please, Dad, the woman pleaded. Stop. You're making a scene. A father and daughter. It was rare nowadays to see a father behave so imperiously toward his own daughter. Just how sheltered had he been trying to keep her? Minorikawa couldn't see her face from where he was sitting, but his interest was piqued. Should he move to another seat where he could take a look? No, he has to finish his article! Stay focused, guy. We're trying to get this paper out by the end of the day. If that young lady looked anything like her father, he'd just as soon pass. Minorikawa went back to his typing. It took a few minutes to re-establish his writing groove, with the two still bickering across the room, but thankfully, he'd soon regained his focus. Oh, is it time to go? What's that? His hands went still as a strange noise intruded on his reverie. Whatever it was close by. What in the world is that sound? Is it a bomb? Yeah, let's go find out what the beeping is. I need to get to the bottom of this or I'll never be able to concentrate. Just where the heck is that sound coming from? He searched his surroundings for a moment and quickly discovered the noise was coming from his own bag. He pulled out one of the most important tools of his trade, a bug detector. It was on and it picked up a signal. To a reporter, information was life. That made owning a bug detector a sensible precaution in his line of work. With the device in hand, Minorikawa casually scanned the area. Eventually, he zeroed in on the signal. He stood up. Everyone, your attention please! Someone set up a listening device in here! Several cafe patrons turned their heads in disbelief. A woman wreathed in pungent perfume flashed him a disagreeable look. Oh, come on, that's ridiculous, she huffed. There's something fishy going on. The only thing fishy right now is you, the woman declared disdainfully. Why don't you get out of here and let everyone enjoy their meals? No, I smell a scoop. You what? You, what's your name? None of your business, that's what. Now hurry up and stop that awful noise. The other customers were starting to murmur loudly. There's a listening device here, folks, Minorikawa said. How can that not bother you? Do you know where it could be? Excuse me, the woman called out. Could someone please do something about this man? A waitress hurried over. Sir, please, you're bothering our other customers. There's a listening device in here. That's what people should be bothered with right now. The waitress took a reflexive step backwards at the words listening device. You're the one who's intruding on everyone, the woman shouted. Honestly, could you please stop that racket? It's not me making the racket. It's the bug tracker. Just who do you think you are? Police! Somebody call the police! Ma'am, please calm down, the waitress said. There are other customers here, and I'll calm down once you get this disrespectful bore out of here. All I'm doing is sharing the truth. You can't kick me out for that. The waitress wavered, clearly intimidated by both of them. You sure got a lot of nerve, the woman snapped. Go play detective someplace else. I'm not a detective. I'm a reporter. Really now, by far my least favorite profession. Oh no, and why is that? Did someone write a story about you? Got skeletons in your closet? You shut your mouth! How dare you? Yeah, I smelled a scoop here all right, and the smell is coming from you. Stop it with your scoop nonsense already. It's no use trying to hide things from me. You have no idea what you're talking about. Yes, I do, lady. Go to hell. After you. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. We're fighting, we're fighting, we're fighting. As they shouted over each other, their words blurred together until they were barely words anymore. The onlookers could hear only indistinct, meaningless raving. And still the yelling went on and on and on and on. Eventually there came the sound of approaching sirens. But even when a police cruiser pulled up outside the cafe, the two didn't slow their bickering. Did I get arrested again? Did he get arrested again? No. He probably like missed the thing. He probably missed the thing or whatever. Minorikawa lost his cool and got drawn into an argument with a stranger, giving no thought to the consequences. By the time he came to his senses in a jail cell, he did get arrested again. I can't stop this guy from getting arrested. Maybe worrying about weird noises can wait. It could have been a bomb. Game, okay? I was trying to be pragmatic. Right now, finishing up the article sounds like a better idea. Okay. Okay. I was being pragmatic. And possibly there was a bomb. I don't know. There's a foreign crime syndicate. Okay, let's just focus on the article then. Minorikawa tried to immerse himself in his writing again. Before long, he stopped worrying about the sound. Oh, okay. That was easy. Time passed. Eventually, the pace of his writing slowed down a bit, and Minorikawa glanced at his watch. It was later than he thought. Pretty soon, he was going to have to head over to get an interview from the diet drink people. He reached into his bag for the project proposal to double-check the demo location. Huh? The proposal, it's gone. Crap, where the heck did it go? He checked all around the table, but he didn't see it anywhere. Maybe he'd left it at the other cafe, the non-smoking place? Well, he didn't have time to go back for it now. That's my phone. His phone rang. What now? Minorikawa snapped as he answered it. A tiny squeak came through the receiver. It was followed by the sound of sniffling sobs. I'm sorry. Chucky? Was she done with her interviews, maybe? It's no use. People won't stop to talk no matter how hard I try. Her voice broke up into further sobs. Oh, come on. This again? Really? I can't do it. Don't worry about paying me. Just please let me go home. Minorikawa was already operating on a too tight schedule. He didn't have time to worry about Chucky. On top of it all, look, just slow down and take a breath. Try and keep it at it a little longer. He should have seen this coming when he first called her. Her shyness was practically pathological. But if he cut her loose now, all this frustration would be for nothing. But I can't do it, Chucky whined again. Please, just forget you ever called me. She hung up before Minorikawa could get another word in. He tried calling her back, but she didn't pick up. Chucky, don't you dare bail on me! Leaving money for his coffee on the table, Minorikawa jumped up and bolted from the cafe. The plaza outside Shibuya Station was as crowded as ever. Minorikawa looked around, but there was no sign of Chiaki. She left. She bailed. Minorikawa dropped to his knees in despair. His last hope had up and left. There was no one else he could even ask. All right then, fine. I'll do it myself. He dragged himself back to his feet. All right, listen up. He shouted at the passing crowd. I'm doing street interviews, starting now. You guys, shut up and help me. I mean, don't shut up, but help me. He's doing it. He wound up blowing way too much time just to get 2 pages worth of content, leaving himself unable to finish the other articles. In the end, the issue of 4-Star General Gossip never made it to the newsstands, and Heaven Publishing went down for the count. No! Chucky! She killed him, practically. Without Chucky, Minorikawa just couldn't get the gossip finished in time. What made her run off, though? Chucky shows up in Kano's story at 12:10. One of the decisions there is ultimately what put her over the edge. Kano. Okay. Wow. Kano had been watching syndicate members hand off the attaché case for an hour and a half. He still had no idea where this relay might be headed. The man he was tailing now was about 10 meters away, close enough that Kano could close the distance and apprehend him at a moment's notice. But his orders remained the same: follow and observe. He watched as the case was handed off once more. By now, the shock of seeing it pass to yet another accomplice had worn off. It's already been 90 minutes, huh? Hey, our friend is back. It was Sasayama! At some point, he'd crept up on Kano from behind. They don't seem like they're trying to get away at all, Kano said. They're just walking. What could they be up to? Sasayama shrugged. Yeah, it's weird. Kano recalled Dictum 89. The more irrelevant something seems, the more relevant it's bound to be. If Tateno's wisdom held true, the syndicate must have some reason for what it was doing. Were they just trying to throw the investigators off their scent? No, that couldn't be it. They were wandering in circles, staying right in the same area. They were just running up the clock. What if that's exactly what they were after? Buying time. Kano felt a sudden conviction that he was on the right track. If they needed more time to make sure they got their hands on the ransom payment... Wait, hold on. Could it be that? I don't know. I'm not a detective. The real case had already been switched out? Aren't these kind of the same thing? I would say maybe the real case had been switched out. Could it be that the real case had already been switched out? It made a certain amount of sense. I'm sorry if that didn't. By handing the case off to one accomplice after another, they were leading the detectives to pay more attention to the individuals than the case itself. That could enable them to swap the case while all of the focus was elsewhere. Kano shared this hunch with Sasayama. I see. I mean, it is a possibility. Yeah, we might be following the wrong case. There was a palpable tension in the air now. Kano, you gotta report it into Kuze. On it! Kano's hand flashed to his wireless. But Kuze was dismissive. Nope, that's the case, I assure you. No offense, sir, but how can you be sure? Kuze sighed. Because that's my job. There's an ID tag in the case that allows us to keep tabs on it. There's no way these crooks could have whipped up a duplicate. ID tag? What ID tag? Wait, no, that's right. Kano had forgotten all about that detail in the wake of an all-nighter. Oh, right. Well, tell me that and I make a different guess. Don't you right me. Clearly you weren't hired for your brains. Focus on what you're good at. Kuze ended the call. Still, Kano couldn't shake his conviction that something was off. The man with the attaché case made his way back to Shibuya Station. The heck? Sasayama grumbled. He's right back where he started. Kano felt his frustration growing. It honestly looked like the syndicate was just randomly lugging the case around town. Near Shibuya Station, a girl approached the suspect. Jackie! She was Japanese and entirely unlike any of the other criminal accomplices. She spoke to the man while showing him something on a notepad. He glanced at the pad but did not slow down. Within moments, he left her behind. It looked like she just passed him a message. Well, that's surely fishy, Sasayama muttered. What, the girl? Asked Kano. Yeah. Want to go hit her up? Sasayama could only mean one thing, questioning her. Yeah, let's see what she knows. Sasayama and Kano hurried over to the girl. Excuse me, miss, we'd like to ask you a few... Are you happy with your life? The young woman shouted. She thrust her notepad into Kano's face. Tell me this, are you happy with your life right now? Huh? Looking at the notepad, Kano saw the same question written there in big bold letters. The girl's eyes widened in surprise, as if she hadn't expected the two men to actually stop and listen. Right now, sir, she continued, are you happy? If so, if you could please take this survey about, about your life. Are you happy with it? The more she spoke, the more flustered she became. Sasayama stepped in. Hey, I need to know, did you speak with that Western fellow just now? Huh? No, that isn't what I'm asking. Sir, are you happy with your life right now? Are you happy with your life? Right now? Kano got a sinking feeling in his stomach. The kid was looking for religious converts or something. You did speak with him, didn't you? What did you tell him? The girl's rambling abruptly ceased. Her already ready face went even redder and tears welled up in her eyes. Poor kid, Kano thought. She's just out here trying to get people to listen to her survey questions. There's no way she's part of this kidnapping plot. Look, miss, for the time being, it would be a good idea for you to leave the area. Oh, so we told her to leave. I thought we were going to give her an interview, which would give her like confidence, and then she would stay and do more interviews. But maybe if we don't talk to her, then she would stay. I'm afraid I'm not at liberty to explain. The girl's only response was to start sobbing outright. I can't do this anymore. I want to go home. Kano and Sasayama exchanged awkward glances. I want to go home. I want to go home. Passerbys began shooting curious looks at the trio. Kano, you get back to work, Sasayama said. I'll escort this girl to the train station. He didn't quite manage to stifle the embarrassment in his voice. Right, Kano said. He hurried away, his eyes already searching for the suspect they'd been tailing. So maybe we have to leave her alone. I'm such a bad detective. It didn't take long to find him. The man's black garb made him stand out in the crowd at the intersection. It occurred to Kano that all of the criminals who'd handed the attaché case had been wearing the same black clothing. That fact made the whole situation even weirder. Could they really be ignorant that they were being followed while they were all wearing the same eye-catching outfit? It was more likely they were going out of their way to make sure the investigators spotted them. That still didn't provide any clues as to what they were after, though. The longer Kano kept tailing these guys, the less it all made sense. Was it really such a good idea to keep this up? Someone's life was in danger, and they were just letting the kidnappers carry out their plan, whatever it was. The very first page of the diary spelled things loud and clear on that front, which is, obviously, never lose sight of what you're supposed to protect, ever. Right now, the single most important thing was ensuring the hostage's safety. This was a situation where Tatano would have stuck to his guns for sure. Kano thought back to the other day 3 years ago. A burglar had shut himself aside a financial office and doused the place in gasoline. Kano had just been put on police box duty and was ordered to the scene because his box was just down the street from the standoff. Several officers had surrounded the building, keeping close tabs on the situation. The suspect was shouting nonsense through the entrance on the first floor. Things were getting heated. A crowd of alarmed onlookers had started to form as well. "Step aside," a voice said suddenly from amidst the throng. A middle-aged man in rumpled business suit approached Kano as he hovered nervously at the edge of the scene. "I'm sorry, sir," Kano said. "You have to stay back for your own safety." He attempted to usher the man back into the crowd. A no-nonsense look crossed the newcomer's face. He spoke in a low voice. "I'm Detective Tateno from the Shibuya precinct. What's the situation?" "Oh, sir, I'm so sorry. Yes, of course." Kano stammered, then quickly explained. "He hasn't taken anyone hostage, but there are still people on the upper floors of the building." Giving only a slight nod, Tateno marched straight up to the building. The plastic container of gasoline the suspect had used was on the ground out front. Tateno picked up and dumped the remaining contents out over his head. Kano was at a loss for words. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. "I've covered myself in gasoline too," Tateno called out from the entryway. The tension in the air ratcheted itself up several notches. "Hey, what do you think you're doing?" Kano heard the burglar shouting from inside. "If you're gonna do it, do it," Tateno called out. "We can die together." And he walked into the building. All Kano could do was watch things unfold through the plate glass window. Tateno was talking to the burglar, but Kano couldn't make out the words. The crook was clutching a lighter, his hand trembling. His expression was like that of a frightened child. Tateno slowly approached him and took firm hold of his shaking hand. The onlookers erupted into cheers and applause. Tateno handed the now docile suspect over to the detectives, then wearily sat down against the planter out front. It was like something ripped straight out of a police drama. "That was amazing," Kano breathed. "You have to deal with guys like that as quickly as you can. You let a situation like this get even a little out of hand, you never know how things might go south on you." Tateno spoke quietly, almost as if he were talking to himself. As the police evacuated the rest of the building, Kano noticed there were children and elderly people among them. If the perp had managed to set the fire, there was no way they would have escaped in time. But, I mean, what if he'd actually set the place on fire? If someone's willing to risk their life, you're not going to convince them of anything unless you do the same. Kano still remembered the awe he'd felt at Tatano's matter-of-fact tone. Kano hadn't become a police officer out of any real sense of duty. He just thought it would make Rumi happy if he became a detective like her father. Besides, civil servants tended to stay afloat in times of recession, and his time playing rugby meant he was in good physical shape for the job. He never really thought too much about protecting the citizenry or keeping the peace. But now here he was in the presence of a detective who literally risked his life in the line of duty without a second thought. A police officer never loses sight of what he's supposed to protect. Ever. Getting back to his feet, Tateno tugged his gasoline-drenched coat and walked away. Kano wrote the words in a notebook he just purchased. Thus, the diary was born. Thinking back to the way Tateno had put his life on the line to rescue a bunch of strangers made Kano feel all the more raw about just tailing these syndicate members. Letting the crooks just wander around wasn't going to bring Maria Osawa to safety. Of that, Kano was now certain. Shoot, it's bleeding pretty bad, he heard someone say behind him. He turned and saw two young men carrying another along. There was a towel wrapped tightly around the third's head. Hey, what happened? Kano asked. Shut your mouth. Kano blanched. Can the attitude. He's trying to help. Another voice cut in. It was Sasayama. Had he finished dealing with the girl by the station? What happened to your friend? Out of my way, man. I ain't afraid to kick your butt. Look, cut the crap and let me take a quick look. Sasayama unwrapped the towel from around the young man's head. Ooh, that's nasty. The young guy was a little more than a kid. His head was soaked red with blood. He appeared to be unconscious. Oh my gosh, should we call juvenile affairs? I don't even know what that means. Like other cops that will come get him? Let's take him to a hospital. Let's try to do that. They were in the middle of a job, but they couldn't just leave him like this. They should probably take him to a hospital. Kano offered to help carry the bloodied young man, but Sasayama stepped in front of him. He quickly flashed the two youths his badge. Oh crap, you a cop? Sasayama nodded. Who you kids with? The Bamfs? SOS? SOS, admitted one of the young men after some hesitation. Who attacked you? Yo, it ain't like that. What was it like then? Infighting? The young man was silent. Sasayama must have been right on the mark. In the course of the police duties, Kano picked up a fair amount of the street gossip from the young people in Shibuya. Lately, the scuttlebutt about the legendary SOS gang was that they were dealing with some internal strife. Look, don't worry about it. I get it. There's a hospital just down that way. Hurry up and get him there. The young man batted off Sasayama's offered hand, then quickly hauled his friend away. Sounds like SOS is on the verge of breaking up with all that infighting, huh? Kano asked. He kept his eyes on the young men as they headed off. Yeah, seems like it's been pretty rough. You know, what with the original leader leaving and all. The detectives in juvenile affairs were well acquainted with SOS's original leader. That would be Achi. The stories were like something out of some after-school special. There were tales of them taking down gangs who sold drugs to kids or breaking into Yakuza front offices to save their friends. The detectives with juvenile affairs took these stories with a grain of salt, but if there really were young people like that out there, Kano hoped to meet them someday. The detectives had to hurry to catch up with the man they were tailing. He was still strolling along, seemingly in no particular hurry. They kept him in sight as he crossed another pedestrian overpass and circled back around. Still following the same MO, huh? Sasayama grumbled. Guess so, Kano said. How'd things go with the girl? He was careful not to take his eyes off the mark as they talked. I managed to calm her down and get her on a train. She was going on about how she wanted to go someplace far, far away, but whatever, it's all good now. I feel kind of bad about the whole thing, Kano said. Well, she's not pertinent to the case anyhow. Guess it's back to dodging this guy. Sasayama nodded towards the suspect, looking none too pleased. So, Sasayama, I'm thinking the attaché case is going to get handed off again at any moment now. Huh? Sasayama appeared at the mark, who was scanning the plaza he just entered, apparently looking for someone. I take one side, you take the other? Kano suggested. Sasayama's eyes went wide. Say what now? That way we apprehend both perps involved with the handoff. You're not supposed to be doing that, though. Sasayama didn't reply. Look, HQ isn't thinking about the hostage's safety, but that needs to take priority here. Sasayama's face took on a rare solemnity. Disobeying a direct order is not something to do lightly. Yeah. Don't do that. Then after a moment he added, but I'm on board. I'm sick of all this wandering around anyway. That's the Sasayama I know, Kano replied with a chuckle. Sasayama gave him a silent thumbs up. Oh, we're doing it? We're doing it. The two detectives took up the position on opposite sides of the plaza. Kano called Sasayama on his cell phone. You ready? He asked. Just give the word. There were only two non-Japanese people in the nearby crowd. Both were eyeing their surroundings anxiously. Kano was certain the handoff was about to take place. And then... Well, if it isn't Mr. Toyama. Kano's ears perked up at the sound of an aggressive greeting, the voice dripping with feigned cheer. He whirled around to see two rough-looking young men confronting a father and his daughter. The older man looked pained. Please, just hold on. I thought we agreed on 4 o'clock. They did agree on 4 o'clock. The young man snarled. Don't you try and play dumb with us, buddy. Why didn't you stay at the office? No, this was after. It's nothing like that, I swear. My girl was just hungry, so I stepped out to... Yeah? How come you just didn't order delivery? Ah, yes, right. I suppose that would work too. Don't you me, man. Kano watched the argument uneasily. The stranger's altercation put him in a bit of a spot. The crook he was tailing probably wouldn't risk handing off the case with an uproar like this going on. What's going on over there? Sasayama asked. I'm not sure, Kano replied. Looks like some kind of argument. The suspects are gonna get wary on us. It's gonna screw up the whole handoff. Yeah, I know. So do something about it and get over there. What? Find some way to shut them up and then get over here. Oh, sure, all right. Kano headed towards the argument. He was only halfway there when Sasayama called again. He sounded panicked. Hey, Kano! He made a run for it! Huh? Oh, crap. The man they'd been tailing had vanished in the brief time Kano had taken his eyes off of him. Wait up, Kano shouted. Sasayama was racing after the suspect, and Kano rushed to join him. The man was surprisingly quick, however, and neither detective managed to catch up. In fact, they soon lost sight of him amidst the teeming crowds. Frantically, they dashed through the streets as fast and as hard as they could. We lost him, Sasayama admitted at last. He stamped his foot on the asphalt in disgust. Director Kuze, Kano gasped over the wireless. I'm sorry, but we lost the man with the attaché case. There was a heavy sigh on the other end of the line. Kano braced himself. He wasn't going to be able to weasel out of this one with just, I'll do better next time. Sasayama, Kano, get back to the precinct. Kuze out. With that, Kuze switched off the line. Whoopsie doodle. Back to the precinct. Kano knew full well what they meant. They were off the case. There was a gnawing in his gut. If these two punks hadn't shown up... No, if that father and his daughter hadn't turned up, he might have been able to apprehend the suspect. We have to stop them from leaving the building, I guess. Don't let it get you down, Sasayama said. I mean, paper pushing can be kind of fun. The look on his face, however, suggested he didn't think it was fun at all. Not one bit. With the air of two men heading to an execution, Kano and Sasayama trudged back towards Shibuya Precinct. Aw. Bad end. Back to the precinct. Kano was taken off the case because he lost track of the suspect, thanks to a random altercation nearby, and his glum conclusion was correct. If the father-daughter duo hadn't shown up, this wouldn't have happened. A certain someone needs to give those two some better advice, and a certain other someone needs to meet up with them outside his or her house. Both of these are key to changing poor Kano's fate. So we'll figure that out next time.